Hello, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. This is my second time here at Memex. I was here a couple of years ago, and what I was presenting on, and that's sort of the context for what Tracy's going to be talking to you about in just a minute. A couple of years ago, the area started a research project on the issue of attention, and at the time, I reported on our plans for that project. Now, 2 years later, here we are. Tracy has joined the ARF, and for moral support, we have Sam here too. And our boss couldn't make it because he's teaching a course about AI today. But we have made great progress on this project. And as you will see in just a minute, we have some really interesting results from the project about the methodology, the use, and all of that. So with that, I'm just going to sit down and hand the stage over to Tracy. Oh, I'm going to talk about that too. Oh, okay. Yeah, we have a little division of labor here. So you heard we're both with the Advertising Research Foundation, ARF. In case you don't know, what is the ARF? Many of you aren't members. Shame on you. So, because as you see, the world's leading companies are members of the ARF. What's unique about the ARF, we're not some kind of lobbying group for some organization, but we really are a platform for companies from all of these different groups to come together and discuss issues, make progress on measurement, validation, and so on. So you hear a lot of companies there. This is sort of our motto. We are working now with the Marketing Science Institute in SIM together, but the ARF, our core mission is to further through research the scientific practice of advertising and marketing. So we're all about science and all about validation, improving methodology. And on the next slide, we have tons of conferences. One conference just was completed yesterday. So we had our conference yesterday. And to show our, thank you, to show our interest in attention, you can see here that's on our agenda. We had 2 or 3 attention research days already, and we are planning one this year. And as you see, the headline here, it's about the understanding of the metrics, utilizing them and improving them, and for better creative and better advertising placement. And so with that, finally, I am relieved, and I'm going to give the microphone here to Tracy to tell you all about this attention validation project.
Thank you. So wonderful to be here today. A big thank you to Jeff, but to the I2 team in general. You're such wonderful partners, and we appreciate you so very much. So all about attention. We had a really packed 2-day conference, and a big substantial part of that was really about attention. So in 2022, the ARF launched the Attention Measurement Validation Initiative. And really, this was in response to the industry's focus on attention, which is still very, very strong. It's still one of the main things I think that people are really interested about. Some of the goals included really to broaden the understanding of the current landscape of attention. We wanted to provide a better understanding of all the different measurement suppliers, the definitions of attention, the different techniques and methods. We also wanted to assess the replicability, reliability, and validity of existing approaches and methods, and also to be more practical, to propose steps and guidance, how to improve transparency and practices, maybe to come up with some kind of common definition. Standardization, I think that's, maybe somewhere along the line, but not right now. In terms of the initiative, so it's a 3-phase initiative. We are currently in the 3rd phase and very excited to be there. The first one was all about mapping the space, right? So to really understand all the different key actors in this space. And like I said before, the different methods and techniques. And we created this compendium of all the current attention measurements. These are the very biggest players in the field. And of course, I2 was one of those very big players. The second phase was to focus on creative. So to understand how attention works in terms of creative. And we did here an empirical study. We took the same set of creatives across different media platforms. I'll talk about this in a bit. And we really wanted to compare the similarities and the differences within and between the different methods that were used. And the third stage is all about media. And we are, struggling, but it will be a really good research, but struggling to design a research that will also include controlled multi-platform experiment across several live advertising campaigns. And I'll talk about this in a bit. Okay, so our published works, and I really should have added here QR codes to make it easier on you guys, but if anyone is interested in attention, I highly recommend. I think these are really good resources to know more about the attention as a field, as a space, and all the very different things that are going on, the different case studies, definitions, methods, and so on. So I invite you to take a look at these when you have a moment. Okay, so the first phase, this was really about understanding the landscape of attention. We reached out to more than 40 attention measurement companies, not only in the US, but also in other places, and we invited them to participate in this stage. At the end of the day, we had 29 attention measurement companies participate. Each of them had to fill out a really detailed, quite long, comprehensive RFI. And what we did, we created for each of these 29 attention measurement companies a profile. That's why I think it's such a good resource for anyone who's interested in attention. So each of these profiles, these are extensive profiles, 4 to 5 pages about each different company. They include all the different definitions, the theoretical foundation that stands behind a company's product, the different use cases, the products, the deliverables. Of course, a really deep dive into the methods to understand the different tools and techniques that people are using. And also we asked a few questions about the scope of business operations, staff capabilities, and so on. So what you see here, this is a really tiny part of that book, but as you can see here, most of the attention companies, and I2 is right up here taking a really prominent place, they do both. They do both creative and media, and then we have some of these that focus only on media, others that focus only on creative. We also understood that there are companies, we call them attention natives. These are companies that were created especially to be part of this attention measurement landscape. These are relatively new. They're kind of small. They tend to use eye tracking in the wild and facial coding. In terms of the key finding that we found, and this is across all the 29 different companies that were part of the compendium, maybe this is not going to surprise you. The definitions of attention, there's such a huge variety, 29 companies, maybe 29 or more definitions of attention. I think what's more interesting about this is that it oftentimes aligns with the measurement method used to the point where sometimes the method is derived from the definition is derived from the method, right? So if you have a specific tool or a specific method, then you kind of build a definition around that, which is totally understandable, and it is what it is. Across the different companies, we see oftentimes there is quite a good common understanding that attention is a prerequisite for engagement, emotional impact, and memory. It doesn't, however, necessarily guarantee ad success. Everyone pretty much agrees that this is like the first step. It's essential. You have to capture and maintain attention because you want to achieve all the rest of the objectives. And there is a kind of sequential relationship, right, between viewability, the ability to actually see the ad, and then the next level up is to grab the attention. That might lead to some kind of emotional engagement and this is not strictly linear, right? These elements are interdependent. So, but this is pretty much agreed on across the different companies. Okay. The second phase, as I said before, that was all about creative. And what we did here, the idea here was to evaluate and compare the different methods in creative testing, and we really wanted to understand the differences and the similarities within a specific method and between different methods. So here's what we did. In terms of the data collection, we reached out to advertisers to contribute their ads. By the way, the second stage is fully anonymous. So everyone signed NDAs. I will not reveal the participants. It is what it is. So we had more than 60 sets of pieces of creative. Eventually, we decided to select 32 pieces of creative. And those, they were included a large variety. As you can see here, we had 8 different categories, 11 different campaign objectives, 6 different creative approaches, 12 media types, 6 ad length. In terms of the ad success, we also asked the advertisers and the brands to evaluate their ads according to their KPIs, right? And they gave us, it was below expected, met expectations, above expectations, and then wildly successful. And that is something that we followed up on afterwards, and I'll talk about that. In terms of the attention measurement companies, we recruited 12 attention measurement companies. Those are from the very first phase that stated that they focused on creative. And all of the companies committed to use their typical method, right, to analyze the ads. And they also committed to present the results in the same format as they would to any client. And as you can imagine, we got a wonderful, huge, messy soup of data, just so many different formats and measures and method and scores and norms. And it was a wonderful, challenging, hot mess. But we tackled it, and we came up with the research design. What we did, we decided to start with a stratification approach. So we took all the different norms and results and findings, and we divided them according to quintiles and, oh, I'm blanking out, quintiles and deciles. And that helped us to rank the ads in terms of high and low. And then we did a time series analysis for those companies who actually provide results on a second by second base. We could compare between all the different time series, the very dynamic time series that each of them provided. And then also a really deep qualitative approach for all those companies that provided qualitative findings. So not just, a number of attention, but also to say something about the ad, to say a story about why an ad is more or less successful in terms of the attention. So a deep dive in terms of the qualitative approach. What we found across all the different findings and the results is that most of these ads actually adhere to 3 measures of attention: passive attention, active attention, and emotion. They don't necessarily call them that. The terminology is less the point here, but so you could call it something else. But the idea behind it is that passive attention is visual focus, right? It's eyes on screen, a very low level of engagement with the ad. It's basically if you're looking at the ad or not. Active attention is one level above that. So is there any kind of engagement with the ad beyond just looking at the screen? And then some of the companies also included a measure of emotion, right? So how does that make us feel? Usually that's with facial coding: happy, sad, angry, disgusted, and those kind of things. Again, it's not the actual terminology that the companies use. That's not the issue here, but it's the way they understand attention. And that was something that was common to most of the companies that took part. In terms of the key finding, and this is something that we can, it reiterates what we found in the very first stage, they define attention according to their capability, right? And that's so the method drives the definition. What we found, which was very, very interesting, is that different methods of measurement often gave us different results. And, we try to understand why is that. And, different methods measure different dimensions of attention. That actually, it makes sense. EEG is going to give you something very different than eye tracking or GSR or facial coding. These are different dimensions of attention. We did find that within method, there is more consistency. So 2 eye tracking companies, they would be more consistent in terms of the results, but not necessarily. We might have expected the consistency to be even more, to have more convergence. But again, here too, even within a method, there are such big differences, right? The tools can be different, the execution can be different. And if I take you back a couple of slides, there were so many different components, different KPIs and different emotional types and different media placements. I mean, there was a lot going on, right? Some of them use panels, others don't. Some of them control for different variables and so on. So this is really something, again, that we can explain. And I think this is also kind of interesting. We didn't find as much of a consistency with the advertisers' evaluation of the ad's success, which I think was interesting too. But again, when we try to explain that, we think it's probably because, you know, once someone actually sees an ad and all the way to the point of purchase, there are so many steps on the way. So obviously things change. Some more findings that we find to be very, very interesting. The importance of a brand in moment. So here you can see this is the same ad, okay, across different methods. The shaded portions are the parts where you actually have the brand in the ad. And you can see according to different methods, you know, so a different method will define whether that moment was captured or not. Again, it says something about the differences in method, but more than that, I think it says something about the brand and moment, how very important it is. And, you know, maybe I'm preaching here to the choir, but how very important it is to brand frequently and not just at the beginning and the end, but to do so throughout. Another thing that we thought was interesting was something that we called the company's signature. So we found that if a company uses a specific method or technique, they will have some kind of pattern that is kind of typical to that technique. So this is an example of a company that employs eye tracking and facial coding across different creatives. You see pretty much the same pattern. You know, again, that I think that's interesting. It says something about the tool that they're using and not necessarily something about the creative, right? Which is, it's a good finding. And then finally, the importance of this, again, enforced origin, we call it. So if a company, this is a company that uses facial coding, if they decide to start and capture the attention from one, the attention is always going to drop, first of all, right? First, there will be a drop in attention and then it will carry on. If it were the opposite way, if someone starts to decide to begin at 0, the attention will first go up, right? So that's another thing that's just interesting to find. Okay, third stage, yay, very excited to be at this point. A bit about the methodology. We started this actually in summer 2024. We issued RFIs to all those companies from the very first stage that focus on media with a whole lot of questions about capabilities, deliverables, key metrics, and platforms, and even deeper dive than the very first RFI at the first stage. Winter 2024, we asked all of those companies to fill out a matrix. And in that matrix, there were so many different media platforms, and we wanted them to provide the scores and the norms according to the different media platforms. And we were hoping to be able to say something in general about a media placement or a media platform across different techniques. Spring 2025, this is the moment we are right now. At this moment in time, we have plus minus 10 attention measurement companies that are hopefully going to measure a set of 4+ live campaigns. And this is something that came out of the metrics. The companies that filled out the RFI and the matrix, almost all of them said that they could do live measurements. So we said, okay, let's control for that and focus on a live measurement across these 3 platforms, TV, digital, and social media. Again, because of their abilities, we want to focus on that. And we also want to couple that with validation data, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then hopefully, we're being really optimistic here. We hope to be able to present the findings of the study in our attention conference, which is June 5. Keeping fingers crossed. It's a lot of work. I'm not sure we'll make it, but we're hoping to be able to say at least something, preliminary findings. Okay, so why is a control experiment even necessary at this stage? What we find is that different companies, again, this is kind of repeating ourselves, they use different metrics and they use different definitions. So for instance, in terms of time and reach, 4 of the companies that participated in the metrics phase, they say that they do report on time and reach, but then we have 2 companies that report on reach only, and then we have 4 companies that do not at all have any kind of engagement with time or reach. Or in other examples, we have 5 companies that provide one key measure of attention, but then we have 5 companies that provide an assortment of measures, and those need to be examined in relation to one another. So just to, to show you the really large variety that we have here. Continuing this kind of idea, when we looked across all the different scores and the norms, we found that, for instance, 4 companies show that TV has the highest attention levels across all the different platforms, but then 2 companies did not show that at all. 2 companies show that stream and TV has higher attention levels than linear, but then 2 companies show the exact opposite. 3 companies show that YouTube has the highest attention levels, but then 2 companies does not show that at all. As you can see, there's a lot going on. 4 companies show that smaller screens have higher attention levels, but one of them says that it's exactly the opposite. So, this wonderful mess, and how do you really untangle all the information here? It just made us realize that a controlled experiment is necessary. And this is exactly where we are right now. So we're doing live campaigns, as I said before, across social media, TV, and digital. We have 8 eye tracking companies and 2 companies that are more emotion experience based. In terms of advertisers, we have 4 to 6 brands, various sizes and industries. And this one is really critical this time around. We also want to do some kind of validation. So we want to connect it to outcome data. And at the beginning, we were like, oh, we'll connect it to sales. But, a lot of us know that attention doesn't necessarily lead to sales. It leads to other things that are more upper funnel. So we also decided to include brand awareness. So we're trying to kind of cover all the different aspects. And that is it. Wish us luck. And if there's any questions, we're very happy to answer.